There comes a moment when your heart feels tired, not because you are weak, but because you've carried emotions that were never yours. In that quiet moment, you realize your power returns the day you choose to detach and protect your inner peace. This audiobook will guide you through emotional detachment, healing, clarity, and the calm strength needed to reclaim the parts of yourself that pressure slowly pushed aside. Chapter 1. The first step: understanding what detachment really means. Emotional detachment is often misunderstood. People think it means shutting down or becoming distant, but real detachment is gentler. It teaches you to feel your emotions without letting them take control of your reactions or your direction in life. Detachment lets you observe instead of absorb. You still feel, but you stop letting every emotion settle inside you like a heavy weight. This creates space where your thoughts become clearer and your responses become intentional. The journey begins with awareness. Most people react instantly to small triggers without noticing how much they affect them. A short tone, a delayed reply, or a careless remark can shift their whole mood. Detachment starts when you notice these patterns instead of falling into them. When you detach, you stop giving power to every behavior or expectation around you. You no longer let someone else's mood decide your emotional state. You begin choosing your feelings instead of letting them be shaped by someone else's instability or pressure. Detachment is not a wall. It is a healthy filter that allows sincerity and kindness to reach you, while keeping chaos and emotional confusion from entering your inner world. It protects your energy without making you cold or disconnected. As you understand your triggers, you start seeing which situations drain you and which patterns repeat. You notice the emotional weight you carry simply because you react without pausing. That awareness becomes the first step toward emotional strength. A key part of detachment is realizing that someone else's behavior does not define your worth. Their silence, distance, or anger does not decide your value. You stop taking everything personally, and in that space, you find a calmer sense of balance. Detachment teaches you that you can care without losing yourself. You can love without breaking under pressure. You can support others without carrying burdens that were never meant for you. This becomes the foundation of emotional stability. As this mindset grows, you learn that not every situation needs a reaction. Not every emotion needs to stay. Not every problem is yours to solve. This understanding gives your mind room to breathe and allows your thoughts to settle. This chapter forms the base of your transformation. Detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of clarity, strength, and steady awareness that protects your peace while keeping your heart open. Emotional detachment becomes easier when you begin to separate what is yours from what never belonged to you. Many people carry the weight of guilt, expectations, and emotional pressure that others place on them, and they accept it as their own. Detachment teaches you to see this clearly. You start understanding that not every emotion that reaches you deserves to stay inside you. Some feelings are simply reflections of someone else's struggles, not a sign of your failure. As this awareness grows, you notice how often you try to fix things that were never your responsibility. You try to calm people who do not calm themselves. You try to explain yourself to people who are not listening. You try to hold relationships that others are not willing to support. Detachment teaches you to release these patterns with grace. You stop carrying the emotional load that others place on your shoulders. You stop trying to repair situations that only drain you. Another important part of detachment is learning to pause. Most emotional reactions come from speed, not intention. A quick message, a tone change, a gesture, or a comment can pull you into overthinking before you even understand what happened. The pause gives you time to breathe, evaluate, and choose a calm response. You begin to see how many conflicts and emotional storms can be avoided simply by giving yourself a moment to settle before reacting. In this phase, you also learn to create gentle internal boundaries. These boundaries do not push people away. They protect your peace. You understand what you can give and what you cannot. You recognize when you are being drained. You sense when someone is pulling you into their chaos. These boundaries become a quiet signal inside you, helping you stay balanced even when emotions rise around you. Detachment also helps you step back from constant overthinking. You stop replaying conversations in your mind. You stop worrying about how others see you. You stop trying to predict every outcome. Instead, you begin grounding yourself in the present moment. You understand that worrying about things you cannot control only steals your peace. Detachment guides you back to the steady truth that you are responsible only for your own actions, not the reactions of others. As Chapter 1 comes to an end, one of the most powerful lessons is this: detachment does not make you less caring, it makes you more stable. It allows you to show love without losing yourself. It lets you support others without collapsing under emotional weight. It brings you closer to your authentic self because you are no longer shaped by external pressure. When you detach with awareness, you move through life with a calm center that cannot be shaken by every shift around you. This calm center becomes the foundation for the chapters ahead, where you will learn not only how to detach, but how to rebuild your inner power with clarity, strength, and emotional freedom. Chapter 2: Reclaiming Your Emotional Space. Reclaiming your emotional space begins with noticing how much of yourself you quietly give away. Over time, you absorb pressure and expectations that do not belong to you. These things fill your inner space and make your thoughts feel heavy. Detachment helps you clear this space so you can breathe again. The first step is recognizing emotional overload. You begin to notice when small moments feel bigger than they should. Someone's tone might stay with you longer than it deserves. A small comment may affect your mood for hours. These signs show that your emotional space is carrying more weight than it can hold. As you see this clearly, you realize how often you ignore your own needs. You try to keep others comfortable even when it drains you. You try to maintain peace even when others add to the tension. You explain yourself to people who are not willing to understand. Reclaiming your emotional space means asking yourself, what do I need right now? This simple question helps you reconnect with yourself. Another important step is limiting emotional access. Not everyone needs to know how you feel. Not everyone should influence your state of mind. When you give people unrestricted access to your emotions, you allow their mood to shape your peace. Setting boundaries protects your inner balance and helps you stay centered. Reclaiming emotional space also means remembering that you are more than the roles you play. You may be a supporter, a friend, or a guide, but these roles do not define your entire identity. When you detach from these labels, you meet a deeper version of yourself, a version that exists beyond pressure and expectation. As you practice this, you begin to feel lighter. Your thoughts slow down. Your emotions feel less crowded. You feel stronger because you are no longer carrying unnecessary weight. This inner space becomes the foundation for emotional independence. It allows you to move through life with a calmer and steadier heart. Reclaiming your emotional space also requires learning to let go of the things that silently consume your energy. Many emotions stay inside you simply because you never pause to release them. You carry old words, old mistakes, and old memories that no longer serve you. Detachment helps you loosen that grip and make room for clarity. One of the most helpful steps is accepting that not everything needs a response. You do not have to explain yourself in every situation. You do not have to correct every misunderstanding. You do not have to chase closure in places where people are not willing to meet you with honesty. When you stop forcing answers, your emotional space opens naturally. Another important part of this process is reducing emotional clutter. Emotional clutter is the noise that fills your mind when you think too much about things you cannot control. It is the habit of replaying conversations, imagining every possible outcome, or worrying about reactions that never came. When you detach from this noise, you feel lighter. Your mind becomes clearer, and your emotional strength grows. You also begin to understand the value of silence. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is where clarity grows. When you spend time in quiet moments, you reconnect with your inner world. You hear your own thoughts without interruption. You feel your emotions without pressure. This silence becomes a safe place inside you and gives you stability. Reclaiming emotional space also involves choosing where your attention goes. Your attention is your energy, and you must protect it. When you focus on things that drain you, your emotional space becomes crowded. When you focus on things that support your growth, your emotional space becomes calm. Detachment helps you shift your attention with intention. Another lesson in this chapter is understanding that peace cannot exist where you constantly chase approval. When you detach from the need to be understood by everyone, you free yourself from a burden that was never yours. You begin living for your own clarity instead of someone else's expectations. This shift brings a quiet confidence into your life. You also learn to create emotional breathing room. Emotional breathing room is the space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. When you give yourself that space, you avoid reacting from fear or pressure. You respond with calm and awareness. This small gap becomes one of the strongest forms of emotional control. By the end of this part, your emotional space feels different. It feels lighter because you are finally letting go of what you cannot carry. It feels clearer because your thoughts are no longer tangled with noise. It feels stronger because you are learning to protect it with intention. This new space becomes the foundation you will build on in the next chapters, where detachment turns into inner freedom and emotional resilience. Chapter 3. Breaking the patterns that hold you back. Breaking emotional patterns begins with seeing the habits that quietly shape your reactions. These habits form slowly. They grow from past pain, old memories, and repeated experiences. Over time, they become automatic. You react without choosing. You follow the same emotional path even when it hurts you. Detachment helps you interrupt these patterns and create new ones. One of the strongest patterns is the habit of overthinking. When you overthink, you create stories in your mind that do not match reality. You imagine outcomes that never happen. You fear reactions that never come. You repeat small moments until they become heavy. Detachment teaches you to step back from these thoughts and see them for what they are, passing feelings, not facts. Another pattern that holds you back is emotional dependence. You rely on others to feel secure or validated. Their mood becomes your mood. Their silence becomes your stress. Their approval becomes your worth. Detachment helps you break this pattern by teaching you to rely on your own stability. You learn that your peace cannot depend on another person's state of mind. Some patterns come from the need to control situations. You try to manage every detail because uncertainty feels unsafe. You try to guide outcomes because you fear disappointment. But control only creates more pressure. You cannot shape everything around you. Detachment teaches you to release what you cannot manage and trust yourself in the spaces you cannot predict. Another pattern is holding on to conversations long after they have ended. You replay words again and again. You think of what you should have said. You imagine how things could change if the moment came again. This habit drains your emotional energy. Detachment teaches you to let conversations stay in the past. You accept that what is done cannot be changed, and you release the grip of what-ifs. There is also the pattern of absorbing emotions from others. You feel someone's tension and treat it like your own. You sense their frustration and take responsibility for it. You carry their sadness without noticing how heavy it becomes. Detachment teaches you to feel empathy without losing your own emotional balance. You learn to care with kindness but protect your inner space. Awareness is the first step in breaking these patterns. Once you see them clearly, you begin to pause. The pause is powerful. It gives you room to question your reaction. Each time you pause, the old pattern weakens and a new pattern takes its place. As this part of the chapter closes, you begin to understand that breaking emotional patterns is not about perfection. It is about progress. It is about choosing awareness over impulse. It is about choosing peace over pressure. It is about choosing growth over old habits. These small choices slowly break the chains of past conditioning and open the door to emotional freedom. Breaking emotional patterns also requires honesty with yourself. You must see the moments when you abandon your own needs. You must notice when you stay silent to avoid conflict. You must admit when you hold on to situations that no longer help you grow. Detachment gives you the strength to face these truths without fear or shame. One of the patterns that often holds you back is the need to please others. You try to meet every expectation, even when it exhausts you. You adjust your behavior to keep others comfortable. You hide your feelings to avoid disappointing someone. This pattern steals your emotional space. Detachment helps you release this habit by reminding you that your worth does not depend on constant approval. Another limiting pattern is reacting too quickly. You speak without clarity. You decide without thinking. You respond from emotion instead of understanding. These quick reactions often create regret. Detachment slows you down. It gives you time to breathe before you respond. It helps you choose actions that come from calm awareness instead of emotional pressure. There is also the pattern of staying in situations because you fear change. You hold on to familiar discomfort because it feels safer than the unknown. You avoid new paths because you fear failure or judgment. Detachment helps you step out of this cycle. It teaches you that change is not the enemy. Change is the doorway to growth. You learn to trust yourself even when the path is uncertain. Another common pattern is blaming yourself for things that were never your responsibility. You carry guilt for situations you did not create. You take responsibility for emotions you did not cause. You hold yourself accountable for outcomes you could not control. Detachment teaches you to release this weight. It helps you separate your role from the roles of others. You learn to accept what is yours and let go of what is not. Breaking patterns also involves creating small emotional boundaries with yourself. You remind yourself when you are slipping into old habits. You pause when you feel the urge to react too quickly. You step back when you start absorbing someone else's tension. These small boundaries guide you toward healthier patterns and give you more control over your emotional world. With practice, you begin to feel the shift. The patterns that once controlled you lose their strength. You do not react as quickly. You do not overthink as deeply. You do not absorb as heavily. You start choosing responses instead of falling into old emotional habits. Each choice becomes a small step toward freedom. As this part of the chapter closes, you understand that breaking patterns is not about erasing your past. It is about learning from it. It is about recognizing the habits that limit your peace and gently replacing them with clarity, balance, and intention. Each step you take brings you closer to emotional independence and a calmer version of yourself. Chapter 4. Letting Go Without Feeling Weak. Letting go is one of the hardest emotional skills to learn. It feels like loss. It feels like surrender. It feels like giving up on something you cared about. But detachment teaches you a different truth. Letting go is not weakness. Letting go is choosing peace over pain. It is choosing clarity over confusion. It is choosing yourself when situations refuse to change. Letting go begins when you stop trying to force outcomes. You accept that you cannot shape everything around you. You cannot make someone understand you. You cannot make someone treat you better. You cannot make a situation become what you hoped for. This acceptance is painful, but it is also freeing. It removes the pressure you have carried for far too long. A powerful step in letting go is recognizing when your effort is no longer being met. You notice when you are the only one trying. You see when conversations repeat without progress. You feel when you are giving more than you should. Detachment helps you accept these signs calmly. It teaches you that walking away from imbalance is not selfish. It is self-respect. Letting go also means releasing the stories you tell yourself. You stop repeating old memories in your mind. You stop imagining how things could have been. You stop creating hope in places where reality shows you something different. These stories keep you tied to situations that no longer support your growth. Detachment helps you close these loops with softness. Another important part of letting go is releasing emotional expectations. Expectations create pressure. You expect someone to behave a certain way. You expect them to understand your feelings. You expect them to show the same effort you give. When these expectations fail, your heart feels heavy. Detachment teaches you to love without expecting everything to match your heart's pace. Letting go also requires letting yourself feel. You cannot move forward by pretending you are not hurt. You must acknowledge the sadness, disappointment, or frustration. These emotions are real. They deserve space, but they do not deserve to control your future. Detachment helps you feel these emotions without letting them become your identity. As you continue, you learn to trust the process of release. You understand that holding on to the wrong things does not keep you safe. It only keeps you stuck. Letting go opens doors you could not see before. It brings new clarity. It brings new peace. It brings the emotional freedom you have been trying to find. By the end of this part, you begin to feel a quiet shift. You feel lighter because you are no longer fighting what you cannot control. You feel steadier because you are not asking for what someone cannot give. You feel clearer because you are no longer holding on from fear. Letting go becomes a gentle choice that protects your heart and strengthens your emotional balance. Letting go also requires you to separate attachment from identity. Many people hold on because they believe losing something means losing a part of themselves. But detachment shows you that your worth is not tied to any person, role, or outcome. You are complete on your own, even when something meaningful comes to an end. A helpful step is learning to stop chasing explanations. You do not need to understand every reason behind someone's behavior. You do not need answers for every action that hurt you. Some truths reveal themselves with time. Some answers never come at all. Accepting this saves your emotional energy and protects your peace. Another part of letting go is allowing space to exist. When you stop forcing connections, you create room for clarity. Distance shows you who respects your absence. Space reveals what was one-sided. Silence highlights what was real. Detachment uses this space to help you see the truth without emotional noise. Letting go also means you stop rewriting someone's potential in your mind. You stop imagining the version of them you hoped they would become. You stop holding on to the idea of a future that exists only in your expectations. You begin to accept what is in front of you, not what you wish to see. This acceptance creates emotional stability. Another step is releasing the pressure to fix things. Not every relationship can be repaired. Not every misunderstanding can be cleared. Not every situation will return to what it once was. Letting go teaches you to honor your effort without forcing a result. It teaches you to step back when your presence is no longer valued. You also learn that letting go is not about shutting people out. It is about protecting the parts of you that need safety. It is about choosing environments where your emotions are respected. It is about moving away from what drains you and moving toward what strengthens you. This shift builds emotional confidence. Letting go also helps you rebuild your focus. You stop giving attention to situations that keep you stuck. You stop investing energy in things that repeat the same pain. You stop returning to moments that no longer hold meaning. Your attention returns to your growth, your healing, and your inner calm. As this part of the chapter comes to a close, you start noticing a gentle freedom inside you. It feels like breathing without weight. It feels like walking without fear. It feels like your heart finally has room to rest. Letting go becomes less of a loss and more of a return to yourself. Chapter 5. Building Emotional Independence. Emotional independence begins when you stop expecting others to manage your inner world. You stop relying on constant reassurance. You stop depending on someone else's mood to feel steady. Instead, you learn to build a calm foundation inside yourself. This foundation gives you strength even when life becomes unpredictable. A key part of emotional independence is learning to soothe your own emotions. Instead of waiting for someone to comfort you, you give yourself space to breathe. You allow your feelings to rise without fear. You listen to yourself the same way you listen to someone you care about. This gentle self-support becomes a source of strength. Another important step is trusting your judgment. Many people look outward for guidance, yet ignore the quiet truth inside them. When you detach, you begin to trust your own decisions. You understand your limits. You know what brings you peace. You stop doubting yourself because someone else cannot see your perspective. Emotional independence also grows when you set small internal promises. You promise yourself that you will not abandon your needs. You promise yourself that you will not shrink to keep others comfortable. You promise yourself that you will protect your emotional space. Keeping these promises builds confidence that stays with you in every situation. You also learn to stand steady during emotional waves. Life will always bring moments of uncertainty. People will disappoint you. Situations will shift without warning. But independence teaches you to stay grounded even when things change. You stop collapsing under pressure because your stability no longer depends on others. Another part of this process is understanding that you can be connected without being consumed. You can love people deeply without relying on them for emotional direction. You can share your heart without handing over your balance. This balance allows you to stay close to others while staying close to yourself. As the first part of this chapter wraps up, you begin to sense a quiet confidence growing. It is the feeling of returning to your own center. It is the feeling of not needing constant reassurance. It is the feeling of knowing you can hold yourself steady no matter what moves around you. Emotional independence also grows when you learn to stand with your decisions, even when others do not understand them. You stop waiting for approval. You stop explaining yourself again and again. You stop shaping your choices around what people expect from you. Instead, you listen to what feels true inside you. This inner truth becomes your anchor. Another step is learning to stay calm when emotions rise. Independence does not mean you never feel hurt. It means you know how to guide yourself through pain. You breathe slowly. You give yourself time. You let your mind settle before reacting. This gentle pause protects you from decisions made in frustration or fear. You also begin to recognize the difference between support and dependence. Support feels light. It strengthens you. It helps you grow. Dependence feels heavy. It takes your balance. It makes you afraid to stand alone. Detachment teaches you to appreciate support without leaning on it for emotional survival. Emotional independence also requires being honest about your limits. You cannot give endlessly. You cannot stretch yourself until you break. You cannot carry everyone's emotions. Knowing your limits is not selfish. It is wisdom. It keeps your heart steady and your mind clear. Another part of this chapter is learning to comfort yourself in moments of doubt. Doubt will come. Fear will rise. Old patterns may return. But independence means you do not collapse when these moments appear. You remind yourself of your strength. You remind yourself of how far you have come. You remind yourself that you can guide your emotions gently back to balance. You also begin to value quiet time with yourself. Time alone becomes healing, not lonely. You reflect. You breathe. You reconnect with your inner world. You listen to your needs without noise from outside. These quiet moments strengthen the bond you have with yourself. As this happens, you stop giving emotional power to uncertainty. You no longer panic when things shift. You no longer chase answers. You no longer fear being alone with your feelings. You learn that emotional independence is not about isolation. It is about knowing you can hold yourself steady no matter what life brings. By the end of this chapter, you begin to feel a stronger foundation forming under you. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is steady. It is calm. It is the quiet confidence that your emotional balance is in your own hands. And with this stability, you are ready to explore something deeper in the next chapter. How to protect your peace when life becomes unpredictable and people around you bring emotional turbulence. Chapter 6. Protecting your peace in unpredictable moments. Protecting your peace begins with accepting that life will not always move in a straight line. People will shift. Situations will surprise you. Plans will fall apart. Emotions around you will rise and fall without warning. Peace is not about avoiding these moments. Peace is about staying steady inside them. Detachment teaches you how to remain calm, even when the world around you feels uncertain. A powerful part of protecting your peace is noticing the early signs of emotional pressure. Your body feels tense, your thoughts speed up, your breathing becomes shallow. These signs are signals, not threats. When you see them clearly, you can guide your mind before overwhelm takes over. You learn to slow down, breathe, and create space between the moment and your response. Another step is refusing to take sudden emotional shifts personally. Not every change in someone's behavior is about you. People carry their own burdens, fears, and stress. Their silence does not always mean rejection. Their distance does not always mean anger. This understanding protects your heart from unnecessary pain. Protecting your peace also means learning to let situations unfold without forcing direction. You cannot control reactions. You cannot predict every outcome. You cannot manage every shift. Trying to control unpredictability only drains your energy. Detachment teaches you to trust yourself enough to stay calm, even when clarity has not arrived yet. Another important part is creating emotional boundaries in real time. When conversations become heated, you step back. When situations become overwhelming, you pause. When someone tries to pull you into their chaos, you protect your energy. These boundaries are not walls. They are gentle reminders that your peace matters as much as anyone else's emotions. Protecting your peace also involves choosing your focus wisely. When you give attention to chaos, your mind becomes chaotic. When you give attention to clarity, you become grounded. You learn to shift your focus toward things that keep you steady instead of things that drain your strength. This shift is small, but it creates lasting calm. Another part of this chapter is learning to stay present. Most emotional storms grow because your mind runs into the past or races into the future. The present moment is usually much calmer. When you return your attention to right now, your fear reduces. Your thoughts soften. Your peace returns. As this first part of the chapter closes, you begin to understand something important. Protecting your peace is an everyday practice. It is not a single moment or one decision. It is a steady way of living, built through awareness, boundaries, and calm choices. And with this understanding, you are ready to explore the next part of this chapter, where you will learn how to stay emotionally grounded, even when people around you act unpredictably. Protecting your peace also means staying grounded when people around you act in ways that feel unstable. Some shift moods suddenly, some speak sharply, some project their stress onto everyone near them. Their behavior can pull you off balance if you absorb it. Detachment teaches you to understand what is happening without letting it reach your inner space. You begin by reminding yourself that you are responsible only for your own energy. When someone brings tension into a moment, you do not have to carry it. You can remain calm. You can choose slower reactions. You can protect the steady part of you that keeps your emotions centered. Another important skill is creating internal distance during difficult interactions. This distance does not mean you disconnect. It means you give yourself a safe space inside your mind. You observe the situation without getting pulled into it. This inner space protects you from reacting out of pressure. When emotions rise around you, choosing silence becomes a powerful tool. Silence gives you time to understand what you feel. It prevents you from speaking through frustration. It keeps the situation from growing into something heavier. Silence is not weakness. It is a boundary created through awareness. Protecting your peace also means not accepting every invitation to conflict. Some people want you to match their intensity. Some want arguments. Some want a reaction. You do not have to respond on their level. You can choose calm. You can choose space. You can choose to stay in control of your mood. Another part of this chapter is learning that you do not need to justify your calmness. You do not owe anyone an explanation for stepping away from drama. You are allowed to protect your peace, even when others misunderstand your reasons. Your emotional health is not up for debate. You also practice grounding yourself when unpredictability appears. A deep breath, a slow exhale, relaxing your shoulders. These small actions calm your nervous system and bring you back to the present. They help you stay centered even when emotions around you are loud. As you use these skills, you begin to see how much influence you actually have over your inner world. You cannot control others, but you can control your response. You can choose what enters your emotional space. You can decide how deeply something touches you. This awareness becomes a quiet form of strength. By the end of this chapter, you begin to feel a steady kind of confidence growing inside you. A confidence that does not depend on perfect situations or predictable behavior. A confidence built from your ability to stay calm even when life shifts suddenly. And with this new stability, you are ready to step into the next chapter, where you will explore how to rebuild trust in yourself after emotional damage. Chapter 7. Rebuilding Trust in Yourself. Rebuilding trust in yourself begins when you admit how often you have doubted your own voice. You question your decisions. You doubt your feelings. You silence your instincts. These habits slowly weaken your connection with yourself. Detachment helps you reconnect with your inner guidance and rebuild the trust you once had. Trust begins with small choices. You listen to your body when it feels uncomfortable. You pay attention when something does not feel right. You honor the quiet signs that tell you to move forward or step back. These small decisions help you remember that your inner voice has always been there, waiting for you to hear it again. Another part of rebuilding trust is acknowledging past mistakes without punishing yourself for them. You may have stayed in situations too long. You may have ignored warning signs. You may have trusted people who did not value your heart. These mistakes do not mean you are weak. They mean you are learning. Detachment lets you understand the past without living in it. As you rebuild trust, you start to recognize the difference between fear and intuition. Fear makes you overthink. Intuition is calm. Fear creates pressure. Intuition gives direction. When you detach from emotional noise, intuition becomes clearer. You start making decisions with confidence instead of confusion. Another step is keeping promises to yourself. When you say you will rest, you rest. When you say you will step away from something harmful, you step away. When you set a boundary, you respect it. Every time you honor your own word, you strengthen your trust in yourself. Your inner voice becomes someone you can rely on again. Rebuilding trust also means accepting that you cannot control how others see you. You may make the right choice, and someone may still misunderstand you. You may protect your peace, and someone may still judge you. But your trust is not built on their approval. It is built on your awareness, your clarity, and your honesty with yourself. You also learn to question your negative self-talk. When old doubts appear, you slow them down. You remind yourself of your progress. You remind yourself of the strength you've shown. You remind yourself that you can handle difficult moments. This gentle self-support helps you stand stronger than before. As trust grows, you make decisions without needing reassurance. You step into new situations with calm confidence. You stop waiting for someone to validate your feelings. Your choices become grounded in your own clarity, instead of outside opinions. By the end of this part of the chapter, you begin to sense a new alignment within yourself. Your voice feels clearer, your decisions feel lighter, your confidence feels more natural, and with this renewed connection, you are ready for the next part of the chapter, where you will learn how to strengthen your inner guidance, even in difficult moments. Strengthening trust in yourself continues with learning how to guide your emotions during challenging moments. When pressure rises, old doubts return quickly. You question your choices. You feel unsure even when your heart knows the right direction. Detachment helps you slow down these reactions so you can hear your true inner voice. A helpful step is grounding yourself through small physical actions. You breathe deeply. You relax your shoulders. You slow your thoughts. These simple steps remind your mind that you are safe. When your body calms, your judgment becomes clearer. You start seeing situations with balance instead of fear. You also begin to recognize your emotional triggers. Everyone has certain patterns that create sudden doubt. A familiar tone, a small memory, a repeated behavior. When you notice these triggers, you stop blaming yourself for reacting. You understand the pattern instead of seeing yourself as the problem. This awareness strengthens trust instead of weakening it. Another part of rebuilding trust is giving yourself credit for your progress. You notice the times you respected your boundaries. You remember the moments you stayed calm. You appreciate how you walked away from things that harmed your peace. These small wins show you that you are growing with intention. Trust also grows when you stop seeing yourself through the mistakes of your past. The version of you who ignored warning signs is not the version standing here today. The person who stayed silent is not the same person who now understands their worth. Detachment helps you separate growth from old choices. You also practice emotional honesty. You allow yourself to say, "I feel unsure right now," without judging that feeling. You acknowledge your emotions instead of hiding them. This honesty makes your inner voice clearer because you are no longer pushing your feelings away. Another important step is learning that you can handle discomfort. Growth will challenge you. Healing will test you. Change will stretch you. But every time you stay calm through difficulty, your trust in yourself becomes stronger. You learn that your stability is not easily shaken. You also begin to rely less on predicting the future and more on responding to the present. You stop trying to plan every possibility. You focus on what is in front of you. This presence reduces pressure and helps your intuition guide you with steady clarity. As trust grows, your choices become smoother. You stop second-guessing yourself. You do not panic when situations shift. You move through life with more confidence and less noise inside you. As this chapter settles, you begin to feel a stronger connection with yourself. Your mind feels clearer, your inner guidance feels closer, and with this renewed strength, you are ready for the next chapter, where you will learn how to build emotional boundaries that protect your growth and support your peace. Chapter 8. Building healthy emotional boundaries. Healthy emotional boundaries begin with understanding what you allow into your inner world. Many people open themselves too quickly. They give time, attention, and energy without noticing how it affects their peace. Detachment helps you create limits that keep your emotions steady and your mind calm. A boundary is not a wall. It is a line that protects your emotional balance. It lets connection exist without letting pressure take over. When you set boundaries, you choose how much access someone has to your feelings and your mental space. These choices quietly shape your emotional well-being. You start by noticing the signs that a boundary is needed. You feel tired after certain conversations. You feel pressured to agree when you want to say no. You feel uneasy when someone keeps crossing your comfort zone. These signals show you that your emotional space needs protection. Another important step is giving yourself permission to say no. Saying no is not disrespect. It is not rejection. It is simply choosing peace over pressure. Every time you say no when you need to, you build trust in yourself. You show your mind that your comfort matters. You also learn to share carefully. Not everyone deserves to know your personal thoughts. Not everyone can hold your vulnerability with respect. When you stop oversharing, your emotional space becomes lighter. You begin choosing who gets access to your inner world. Another part of building boundaries is limiting emotional labor. You cannot fix everyone's problems. You cannot carry feelings that do not belong to you. You cannot keep supporting people who refuse to support themselves. Boundaries remind you that your energy is valuable. Consistency is also important. A boundary only works when you follow it. You cannot set a rule one moment and ignore it the next. When you stay consistent, people learn how to treat you. They understand what you allow and what you do not. You also learn to step away from situations that disturb your peace. You can pause a conversation. You can take space when emotions rise. You can distance yourself from tension. These small decisions protect your emotional balance. As this part of the chapter settles, you begin to notice a new strength within you. You feel clearer. You feel lighter. You feel more in control of your emotional world. And with this new clarity, you are ready for the next part of this chapter, where you will learn how to protect your boundaries even when others resist them. Maintaining emotional boundaries becomes challenging when people do not respect them. Some may push against your limits. Some may question them. Some may act offended when you protect your peace. But detachment teaches you something important. A boundary is for you, not for their approval. You set it to protect your emotional balance, not to make others comfortable. A helpful step in keeping your boundaries strong is staying calm when someone reacts negatively. You do not need to argue. You do not need to defend your choices. You do not need to justify why you need space. A calm tone and steady posture send a quiet message. My peace matters. When you remain steady, your boundaries become clearer. Another part of maintaining boundaries is recognizing manipulation. Some people may try to guilt you. They may use silence. They may act hurt to pull you back into old patterns. When you detach from these reactions, you see them as emotional pressure, not proof that you are wrong. You remind yourself that protecting your mental state is not selfish. You also learn to repeat your boundaries when needed. People test limits. It is human nature. But you do not need to change your boundary every time someone questions it. You simply restate it with calm consistency. You do not raise your voice. You do not explain too much. You hold your ground with steady clarity. Another important step is learning to walk away from conversations that cross your limits. You can say, "I need a moment." You can pause the discussion. You can step outside to breathe. These small actions protect your emotional space without creating conflict. They also show others that you are serious about your boundaries. Maintaining boundaries also requires noticing your own patterns. Sometimes you break your own limits because you want to avoid tension. Sometimes you give in because you fear disappointing someone. When you see these patterns, you correct them gently. You remind yourself why the boundary exists. Each time you honor it, your inner strength grows. You also learn to let people adjust at their own pace. Not everyone understands boundaries immediately. Some need time to learn how to interact with the new version of you. You do not have to rush this process. You stay consistent, patient, and steady. Over time, your boundaries become a normal part of the relationship. Another key part is understanding that saying less often protects your boundary more than explaining. Long explanations weaken your position. Clear, simple statements strengthen it. When you communicate with calm, short sentences, your message stays firm and respectful. As this chapter settles, you begin to notice how boundaries change your emotional landscape. Your mind feels clearer, your relationships feel lighter, and with this new strength, you are ready for the next chapter, where you will explore how emotional detachment helps you stop absorbing the pain and negativity of others. Chapter 9. Stopping the absorption of others' pain. One of the strongest benefits of emotional detachment is learning how to stop absorbing the emotions of others. Many people take in feelings that do not belong to them. They carry someone's sadness, fear, anger, or stress as if it is their own. This habit drains emotional strength and creates constant pressure inside the mind. Detachment teaches you to stay connected without becoming overwhelmed. You begin by noticing how your body reacts around certain people. Some make you feel heavy after a short conversation. Some create tension even when you try to stay calm. Some leave you tired because their emotions are loud and constant. These reactions are signals that you are absorbing more than you should. A helpful step is learning to separate empathy from emotional responsibility. Empathy lets you understand others. Responsibility makes you carry their pain. You can care without taking ownership of their feelings. You can listen without letting their emotions settle inside your heart. This balance protects your peace. Another important shift is understanding that you cannot heal someone who refuses to heal themselves. You cannot fix their patterns. You cannot remove their wounds. You cannot carry emotions that they avoid facing. When you detach, you give people the space to handle their own journey while protecting your own stability. You also practice pausing before reacting. When someone expresses strong emotions, you take a breath. You listen without absorbing. You stay aware of what belongs to you and what belongs to them. This small pause keeps your mind clear and prevents emotional overflow. Another part of this chapter is learning not to internalize someone's behavior. When a person is angry, it does not mean you caused the anger. When someone is distant, it does not mean you did something wrong. Most emotional reactions are shaped by their own struggles. When you stop personalizing their behavior, you protect your emotional center. Creating emotional boundaries also helps reduce absorption. You decide how long a conversation continues. You decide how deeply you engage. You decide when it is time to step back. These small limits keep your inner world steady, even when others are experiencing turbulence. You also learn to use grounding techniques when emotions around you feel heavy. You slow your breathing, you relax your shoulders, you focus on your own thoughts rather than the emotional noise around you. These small actions remind your mind that you are separate from what others feel. As this first part of the chapter settles, you begin to notice how freeing it feels when you stop carrying what is not yours. You feel lighter, you feel clearer, you feel more present in your own life. And with this new awareness, You are ready for the next part of this chapter, where you will learn how to keep your emotional space protected even in intense or chaotic environments. Protecting yourself from emotional absorption becomes essential when you are surrounded by intense or chaotic energy. Some environments feel heavy even before anyone speaks. People move quickly, voices rise, tension fills the air. In such moments, your mind can collect emotions that do not belong to you. Detachment helps you stay steady inside this noise. A helpful step is noticing when the atmosphere affects you more than the situation itself. You may feel uneasy without a reason. Your thoughts may speed up. Your body may feel tight. These reactions show you are absorbing emotional weight that did not come from your own experiences. Another skill is keeping your focus anchored inside yourself. When things around you feel loud, bring your attention back to your breath. Slow it down. Notice the rhythm of your thoughts. Feel your feet on the ground. These simple actions remind you that your emotional center is separate from the energy around you. You also practice observing without absorbing. You notice someone's tone or expression, but you do not let their feelings enter your inner world. You watch the situation from a calm distance. This mental distance keeps you aware, but not overwhelmed. Another important step is limiting emotional exposure. You do not have to stay in conversations that drain you. You do not have to respond to emotional outbursts. You do not have to match someone's intensity. You can step aside. You can pause. You can choose silence. These choices protect your balance. You also learn to recognize emotional projection. Some people release their stress by pushing it onto others. They criticize, they blame, they exaggerate. Their emotions spill outward. When you detach, you understand these reactions as reflections of their inner struggles, not a judgment of your worth. Staying calm when someone becomes intense is another powerful skill. Their loudness does not require your loudness. Their chaos does not require your chaos. You respond with steady clarity. This contrast protects your emotional energy and prevents it from merging with theirs. You also remind yourself that you are not responsible for fixing anyone's emotional state. You can care with kindness. You can offer support. But you cannot carry emotions someone refuses to face. When you release this burden, your inner space becomes lighter and more peaceful. Grounding techniques help during tense moments. A slow exhale, relaxing your hands, a small pause before speaking. These simple actions calm your nervous system and separate your feelings from the emotional noise around you. As this chapter settles, you begin to understand a freeing truth. You can be present without absorbing, kind without carrying, and supportive without losing yourself. And with this strength growing inside you, you are ready for the next chapter, where you will explore how to rebuild inner calm after stressful or emotionally heavy days. Chapter 10. Rebuilding Inner Calm After Emotional Heaviness. Rebuilding inner calm starts with accepting that some days feel heavier than your strength. You carry stress that is not yours. You hold emotions that were never meant to stay. You replay moments that drain your peace. Detachment teaches you to release this weight slowly and gently. A helpful step is slowing your emotional pace. When thoughts rush, you pause. When your chest feels tight, you breathe deeply. When your mind feels loud, you sit quietly. These small pauses stop your emotions from taking over and help your inner space settle again. Another part of rebuilding calm is creating distance from the day. You remind yourself that stressful moments do not define who you are. The tension you felt does not need a permanent place inside you. When you separate your identity from the day's weight, your mind begins to clear. Silence also becomes a strong tool. A few calm minutes bring your attention back to the present. Silence softens heavy thoughts and reminds you that the noise in your mind is temporary. Even short moments of quiet can shift your emotional state. Rebuilding calm also involves reconnecting with your body. Stress often shows up physically. Your shoulders rise, your breath becomes shallow, your muscles tighten. When you relax your body, your emotions ease as well. A relaxed body guides the mind back to balance. Another important step is releasing the urge to overthink. After a heavy day, your mind tries to replay conversations or imagine outcomes that never happened. This only deepens the heaviness. Detachment teaches you to let the day end. Not every thought needs another moment. You also learn to give yourself permission to rest. You allow breaks without guilt. You allow softness without feeling weak. You allow yourself to slow down even when life feels fast. This emotional permission becomes an essential part of rebuilding calm. Simple routines help too. A warm drink, a slow walk, a few minutes of breathing, gentle stretches. These small habits reconnect your mind with the present moment and bring steadiness back into your emotions. Another part of rebuilding inner calm is protecting your evenings. You avoid draining conversations. You reduce noise. You distance yourself from emotional clutter. The way you close your day decides how much peace you carry into the next one. You also remind yourself that emotional heaviness is not permanent. Feelings shift, stress fades, thoughts settle. You do not stay stuck forever. When you allow time and awareness to work together, calm naturally returns. As this part of the chapter settles, you begin to see that you can guide yourself back to balance. Even after difficult days, your thoughts can soften and your heart can rest. And with this stability, you are ready for the next part, where you will explore deeper ways to reset your inner world when life becomes overwhelming. Rebuilding inner calm after a heavy day begins with noticing the pressure you carried without meaning to. Some moments stay in your mind longer than they should. Some emotions sit quietly under your thoughts. Some conversations leave a weight behind. Detachment helps you release this hidden tension with patience and care. A helpful step is taking short, emotional breaks. You pause for a slow breath. You close your eyes for a moment. You let your shoulders loosen. These small pauses stop your emotions from piling up. They give your mind room to breathe and reduce the heaviness you feel. Another part of rebuilding calm is slowing your thinking. Heavy days make your mind move too fast. You replay moments. You search for answers. You question yourself. Detachment teaches you to slow the pace. You remind yourself that clarity comes when the mind is calm, not when it is rushed. You also learn to separate real stress from imagined stories. Emotional heaviness often creates thoughts that are not true. You assume the worst. You relive conversations. You fear outcomes that will never happen. When you pause and remind yourself, not every thought needs my energy, your emotions begin to settle. Grounding your body becomes another powerful tool. You feel your breath move. You place your feet firmly on the floor. You relax tense muscles. When the body slows down, the mind follows. Your emotions soften because your physical state becomes steady. Rebuilding calm also means reducing emotional noise. You limit stressful conversations. You avoid topics that drain you. You create distance from loud energy. These boundaries protect your mind and help your inner world return to balance. Small comfort rituals also support this process. A warm drink, a quiet walk, soft music, light stretching. These gentle habits shift your mind from tension to ease. They remind your emotions that it is safe to slow down. Another step is ending the day intentionally. Nights often magnify emotions. Small worries feel bigger. Old thoughts return. Detachment teaches you to release the day. You tell yourself, this day is finished. I choose rest now. This simple mindset helps your emotions settle before sleep. You also learn to treat yourself kindly on heavy days. You remind yourself that feeling drained does not mean you are weak. You give yourself permission to rest. You allow yourself to slow down. This kindness rebuilds calm quicker than pressure ever could. As calm returns, you start noticing the shift. Your breathing steadies. Your thoughts quiet. Your heart feels lighter. You realize you can guide yourself back to balance even when the day has been difficult. And as this chapter reaches its end, one truth becomes clear. Calm is not something that arrives by chance. It is something you create through awareness, gentleness, and steady choices. With these tools, you can return to balance whenever life feels heavy and carry this strength forward into every moment ahead.